Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to pick up where we left off in the last Smith-Morra video. I'm going to try to include a link to that in the description down below where we break out the opening pawn setup. And the main takeaway from that video is that you're going to adopt this pawn structure right here, playing a6 first, then d6, and then once the bishop comes out to c4, you're playing e6, and you're enjoying a really nice advantage in this position. Now, in this position here, we've got several moves to choose from, and they're all pretty good. The engine, Stockfish, is going to give bishop to e7 as the best move here, and probably one of the reasons it likes that is because all of a sudden this e5 pawn push is a little bit less threatening for us, because after we take, if his queen comes down and takes us, we don't lose our castle by having to retake with the king. We can retake with the bishop instead. So I'm guessing that is one of the main reasons from an opening theory standpoint that the engine really thinks that bishop to e7 is the best move here. Also, it would offer a little bit of protection against bishop to g5. And that's never a bad thing in the Sicilian. Once we have the bishop on e7, the queen and the bishop working together will prevent Black's bishop from ever coming to g5. That's just kind of more of a side benefit. Black really wants to put his bishop on f4 in the Smith-Morra, exerting pressure on the d6 pawn that way instead. Another move that's a good option, and the one that I chose for this game here, is actually knight to c6. Just developing the knight, getting some good coverage, and for the same reasons listed, after pawn pushes and takes, if his queen comes down and takes our queen, we can simply recapture with the knight. We don't lose our castle. So getting some of the same benefits as we would have from bishop to e7. Bishop e7 just technically more correct than what we saw there. So from here, my opponent plays queen to e2. And we know in a position like this against the Smith-Morra, what he's looking to do is play rook to e1, creating an x-ray attack against our queen. And this is the position that I really wanted to break down, hence the thumbnail for the video. So now all of a sudden, what we're looking at is still bishop to e7 being a good move, and we'll talk about what happens after rook d1 there in a second. That is not the top engine move, though. The top engine move, slightly more here, is going to be knight g to e7. And unfortunately in the game, I played knight to f6 here, which is giving away sort of what remains of Black's advantage, and we'll take a look at that and how the middle game played out here in just a second. But what we'll take a look at now is if we do play this bishop to e7 move and we get rook to d1, this x-ray pressure is still coming through, and there are a couple of ways to handle it. The third best way to handle it is queen to c7. Simply stepping away from the x-ray attack of the rook and making sure that we maintain good solid control of the e5 square there. And yet another way to handle this that the computer really likes is to just go ahead and play b5 now. b5, a really useful move in the Smith-Morra. I could have played b5 instead of knight to c6. Also could have played b5 instead of bishop to e7. And here it's still called for as well, and in this case when we do play b5, white should pull the bishop back to b3, so it doesn't necessarily alleviate anything for us. He's still going to have bishop pressure down along this diagonal. And then the third and the best move that the engine is going to suggest in this case is bishop to d7. The computer says, let me just put another piece in between the rook and the queen, because I'm not sure if I want to develop my queen to c7 or to b6 or even to a5, helping maintain control, I can talk today, of the e5 square from the a5 position. So bishop to d7 in this instance, actually the best setup, because it leaves us some flexibility with our queen. We can reasonably anticipate bishop to f4 coming next, and now e5 is a move, because all of a sudden these sacrifices that may have taken place over here with our pawn taking, if we didn't have this bishop in front of our queen, then that pawn on d6 would never be able to recapture on e5, because it would expose an attack on our queen from the rook. So really good ideas here in the Smith-Morra. Sort of interesting to note that our best setup in a lot of cases is after the initial exchanges occur, of course, to go a6, d6, e6, sort of all in a row. And then, so after 3 pawn moves, we make 3 minor piece moves with knight c6, bishop e7, bishop d7. And honestly, I don't know that it matters too much which bishop you develop first. So if you're looking for an easy way to remember your Smith-Morra setup, start from the A file with your pawn pushes, and then also coming over from the A file, knight, bishop, bishop, after pawn, pawn, pawn. And in this position, black is fine. Black is fine. Black can play e5 here. White will have to find a new home for the bishop. e3 ends up being the best square. How many players in your rating division are going to find bishop to e3 as this move, blocking their queen from this attempted x-ray attack? Not too many of them, and trying to capitalize on the lone square that's available here that it can influence. So hopefully this video was helpful for you guys. I played knight f6 here, and one of the reasons that knight f6 is not great is because this move rook to d1 is coming. And in this case, queen to c7 is the best move, and this is what I played. And then bishop to f4 is the best move, which is what my opponent played. And here I played e5, and now e5 is no longer an option. And the reason it's not an option is because of this knight jump here. Me recapturing and then the pawn recapturing here is not good either. This ends up simply being too much. What we don't want to run into is this very situation right here, where all white has to decide to do is sacrifice to take this pawn, which he's going to do, and rip open our king. And we'll play through a few moves here. Queen back to d8 is about all I'm left with. What's really interesting in this situation is in every opportunity in this game up until now, my opponent is taken with the piece that he was supposed to take with. Here he's actually supposed to take with the bishop, and he decides to take with the knight instead. I'm not supposed to take that, but I do. He takes back with the bishop, and he should have recaptured with the queen. Long story short, due to some blunders by my opponent, I'm able to wiggle out of this position and get a win, but I think we've kind of shown this more of an example of what not to do. We don't want to put a minor piece in a position where it's going to be threatened by a pawn and have to be kicked. What's more important is covering our king, getting one extra piece in between our king and our enemy's queen through this x-ray attack, similar to what we saw when the rook comes over to d1, for example. One of the things in a previous position where bishop to d7 was preferable. Just getting as many pieces as we can in between these x-rays, and make sure that you keep that in mind for your Smith-Morra games. So again, hope you guys found this one useful, and you can adopt these setups here with the 3 pawns, a6, d6, e6, and our 3 minor pieces. This will carry us through about the 10th move of the game. We'll still have an advantage against the Smith-Morra. You know about what to look out for in some of these tricks that they're going to have here. And this should get you at least equal or slightly better positions for you as the black pieces against the Smith-Morra when you face it in the future. So if you like this one, go ahead and smash a like, give us a subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.